Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. Got a few guests here tonight. Thank you for coming. Hope you enjoy it. We'll talk to you at the end just for a minute, just to get you, see how you got here and what you thought of the meeting, things like that. All right.
Just a quick one where we tell them how to get the PDF online, if they happen to be on Zoom.
The PDF?
Yeah, the agenda.
The agenda, okay, fine. Okay. If you're online, if you go to the Dallas Social Toastmasters homepage, on the far right column, or the far right side, you'll see some links, and one link will say, today's agenda, is that what it says? Current agenda, thank you. If you click on the current agenda, you can see the agenda of who's all speaking tonight, and you can follow along with there if you're at home. If you're here, I have some on the tables, so there we go. I do want to welcome you, and if you would all please rise if you want to, and we're going to do a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm John Vessels, and I'm your Toastmaster for this evening. And the theme of tonight's meeting is unexplained events. Ooh, no, maybe it'll be scary, but it'll be interesting, I think. So let's start with some unexplained events. All of us have had some moments in our life where something's weird happened that we don't understand and we can't explain it. Like one night, a long time ago when I worked at Safeway, I worked night crew. Now the building's all locked up, and I'm the only person in the building this night because the other two people called in sick. And I was just working along in the aisle, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody in a red plaid shirt. Now the store's been locked up. It's been hours. The store's been locked up, so I know nobody's in the building. But I looked, and there he was, and I said, looked again, and he was gone. So I searched the building. I went to the dock to make sure a truck driver hadn't come in the middle of the night. Nobody was there. The only way to get out of the building now was through the fire alarm door. That wasn't going off. All the doors were locked. Because when you're alone, it gets kind of spooky. But I don't know where he was, where he came from, or where he went, because I searched the place and there was nobody in there. I couldn't figure out why. He never bought anything because I didn't check it out. If he got anything, he took it on his own accord. Another time, I've had this real weird ability, I guess, or just coincidence. Before we had caller ID, for those of you that are old enough to know that, I used to almost always know who was calling me as soon as the phone started ringing. I was actually sitting on the sofa, and I had a buddy of mine, he was sitting there, and he got up to go to the bathroom, and about the time he got up, the phone rang. And I said, well, answer it, it's for you. He says, who is it? And I said, Sandy, your mom. He goes, okay. He picks it up. It's Sandy. She goes, why are you answering his phone? He told me you were calling. Have you talked to him today? No. He walked around, he was stumped by that for hours. How did you do that? And it's like, it just came to me. I had a friend call me one night, and I knew exactly who it was. And it was, again, when I was working at Safeway. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and he calls for me, and I knew he'd had a wreck. For some reason, I was sitting there working along, and I thought about him and thought about a fender bender. Where it came from, I don't know. But sure enough, he calls and says, hey, John, I had a wreck. Can you get out and come get me? Don't know. as unexplained. I'm not claiming to be psychic, but phones and me get along. Don't ask me why. All right. Tonight we're going to talk about some of our duty holders and what they're going to be doing this evening. And our first duty holder for this evening is our timer. Our timer is Levi. Levi, you want to explain what you're doing?
Yes. Hello, Toastmasters and welcome guests. As timer, I'll be helping the speakers practice expressing a thought within a specific time. My duty is to time prepared speeches, table talk speeches, and speech evaluations during this meeting. The green card indicates qualifying time. Yellow card, target time, and then the red card, maximum time. Once I show the red card, you have 30 seconds to finish up. For a 5 to 7 minutes prepared speech, I'll show the green card at 5 minutes, the yellow card at 6 minutes, and the red card at 7. From there, you have 30 seconds to finish. For table topics, each speaker is encouraged to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. I'll show the green card at 1 minute, yellow card at 1 minute and 30 seconds, and red card at 2 minutes. And then from there, you also have 30 seconds to finish. For evaluators, you have 2 to 3 minutes. The green card is shown at 2 minutes, the yellow card at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the red card at 3 minutes, and then again 30 seconds to finish. If you speak under time or over time by more than 30 seconds, you will be disqualified and will not be eligible for awards. However, for table topics, you must reach at least 1 minute. I'll report the times at the end of the meeting once called upon. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our next duty holder this evening is a change on your agenda. It says Suleiman Mazi as grammarian, but tonight it's been Kim Crandall. So Kim, tell us about grammarian.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. As grammarian, I have 2 parts to my duty this evening. The first one is introducing the word of the day. The word of the day is phenomenon. Please use that in any speaking opportunity tonight. In order to qualify during table topics, you must use the word during table topics. Phenomenon. The event or situation that is observed to exist or happen, especially one whose cause of explanation is in question. I will also be listening for the general use of the English language. Anything that I hear that is exceptional or that maybe needs improvement, I will bring out the great and not so great use of the English language. Mr. Toastmaster.
Our next duty holder for this evening is Lisa Mitchell, and Lisa Mitchell is our co-counter. She's very important. So Lisa, come on, tell us what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and welcome guests. As co-counter, I will collect and count the ballots. When the audience votes for best speaker, best table topic speaker, best evaluator, and best of the big 3. The big 3 are the Toastmaster, the table topics master, and the general evaluator. I will record which person wins in each category. I will not cast a ballot myself except in the case of a tie, in which case I will cast a vote to break the tie. I will not announce a tie vote. You'll place your vote in one of these cups on each table. At the end of the meeting, I will announce and award ribbons to the winners of the votes. The ballots also have spaces to write comments to each speaker, evaluator, and table topics participants. Please place comments in the container, and I will deliver them to the appropriate speaker. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Our all-counter tonight is Rob Giles, and he is online. So Rob, will you explain your duty, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. As the all-counter this evening, I will sing for correct words such as ahs, ums, uhs, and other words that may be filler words that you don't necessarily need to use and may be distracting as you speak. I will keep note of these throughout the meeting, and I will give a report when called upon by the general evaluator. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Anyway, our last studio open this evening is Mark Schroeder, and he has our posture bell. So you explain what the posture bell sort of does?
Thank you, John. Actually, in fact, I have a couple of roles tonight, one of which is Zoom coordinator and making sure all of this stuff is hooked up and working, which unfortunately, Rob normally helps with that. He's in his car, as you just saw, so it's been a little bit overwhelming tonight. But as the posture bell, I have this little thing, and I'm going to make noise if I see anything that I consider distracting in your posture. That could be things like doing the T-Rex, doing windshield washers, if you happen to put your hands in your pockets, or you happen to do the fig leaf, or the reverse fig leaf, or anything that basically does not contribute to your message. You can do anything you want to as long as it contributes to your message. If you want to say, I was walking through the park, well, that's the way you walk through the park, put your hands in your pockets. It makes sense then, but it doesn't make sense to just say, well, I was going to work. That makes sense, it doesn't contribute to your message. So that's going to be my job, is making note of those. During the prepared speeches, I will be quiet and make a note of what I see so that I can do a report on it at the end. But otherwise, during the rest of the time, you are fair game for, and if you hear that, pay attention to what you're doing, posture.
Years ago, when I was a young lad, I was actually going down with my friend Henry to his family outside of Leavitt. And we were doing New Year's Eve and stuff down there. His family has this big old huge bonfire, do all kinds of stuff. So I went down and spent the weekend with him. Now, if you invite me to your house to spend the night, I will be up before you regardless of what's going on, because A, I'm an early riser, but B, it just happens. So one morning I woke up and I heard something in the kitchen that sounded like somebody reading the newspaper. You could hear the flutter of the paper and everything. And I kind of knew what it was and what it sounded like. So I figured somebody's up, so I can get up, okay? So I got up and walked into the kitchen, and there was nobody there. And I didn't hear it anymore once I got in the kitchen. I was like, well, this is weird. So I walked back into the room I was staying in and just got back into bed and waited for everybody else to start to stir. And I told my friend Henry later on when he got up, it's like, I heard this weird thing in the kitchen, like newspaper, like somebody was reading the newspaper. He said, that was his grandpa. His grandpa that passed away, he still read the newspaper every morning at that table, and you can still hear him doing it. And it was cool. It didn't scare me, but it's like, that is wild. So, yes, I believe there's got to be stuff out there. Excuse me. So, we do have two speakers tonight. Great news. And our first one is going to be Tyler Madden, and he's doing his icebreaker. And Tyler's going to be evaluated by Lee King, and Lee is online. So, Lee, will you tell us about the goals for Tyler?
Yes. Tyler will be doing an icebreaker speech. So for the benefit of our guests and other newer members within our audience for this evening, the icebreaker is the first speech. Generally, the goal is to be able to stay on stage for 4 to 6 minutes, hopefully be able to remain on stage until the Toastmaster returns and takes their hand. Traditionally, speech is about the person's individual life, and however, it can be on any topic. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lee. Now I'd like to welcome Tyler Madden, My Speech Journey, Tyler Madden.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Tyler Madden, and I appreciate everyone being here to listen to me speak today. Today, of course, my icebreaker, like Lee mentioned, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about myself and what I call my speech journey. So it all started, I was born in Houston, Texas, and that's where I spent the first 18 years of my life. I'm one of 3 boys, and growing up, I loved, I was big into playing sports. I pretty much played every sport I think you could ever think of: golf, baseball, basketball. I wrestled, I played lacrosse, tennis sometimes. So I was really big into sports. I really enjoyed that. And another thing, which I think is probably common among most people, is I love music. And when I was growing up, I played guitar. I still do. I was in the jazz band and orchestra in high school. I played bass. I played the electric bass in jazz band and the stand-up bass in orchestra. So I like the big old bass with the bow. So I always enjoyed music. I still play today, and to the chagrin of my fiance, I just picked up the harmonica. So I know she loves it when I wake up in the morning and practice. So anyways, yeah. So from Houston, after high school, I decided I want to go to college, and I was choosing between either going to Florida State. I have a bunch of family in Florida, so I had a cousin going there, and so it's Florida State and TCU. And Florida would be a pretty big change for me. And I actually signed up for orientation at Florida State, and then the last second I got cold feet, and I decided to go to TCU. I wanted to be closer to my friends and my family. So I made the jump to TCU, and I had a really good experience there. And I guess that's kind of where my speech journey would start. I of course had to do group presentations a lot in college. And before that, I never really had that many speaking opportunities. I actually I was growing up. I always had a stutter, and it'd come and go, and it was something I was always dealing with. It never really affected me too much. But in college, was also didn't really affect me too much. It would come and go. One year I would have it, other year I wouldn't. It was kind of odd. But with group presentations, that was most of my public speaking, and I never really had to. You can hide behind the better speakers when you have 3 people presenting. So I kind of always was in the background, and then after school, I graduated and I got a job in Houston, or I got an offer in Houston and an offer to come to Dallas. And my girlfriend at the time, who's my fiance now, she got a job in Dallas. So, I was pretty torn because my parents always really wanted me to go back home, and I was, I wanted to do something different. So I ended up moving to Dallas, and I got a full-time job at the company, Alien First, that I'm still at today. And I don't know if it was because it's a little bit more pressure when you're working versus giving a college presentation, but my stutter seemed to be a little bit worse, and I always tried to avoid. I'm not that good at talking on the phone, or I've gotten better, but I was always struggled on the phone for some reason, and I worked on a trading floor, so that was interesting. And I think subconsciously I try to avoid any type of speaking situations when I was at work, and I ended up I moved more from like an analyst position to back office. So I did that for a couple of years, and I was comfortable because I didn't have to client face, and I could still do good work. In my opinion, it was good work. But so when COVID happened, everything was at home, online, on the phone. So I really struggled, and obviously COVID itself. I'm sure a lot of people were stressed out as I was, but the whole speech thing just added a whole new element to that. So I got frustrated one day, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to start going to NSA. Because my stuttering was more blocks where my vocal cords just wouldn't vibrate. So people would be like, I think I was paused or something on video. So it was really frustrating. So I ended up meeting this guy he runs a stuttering program called Stuttering with Confidence. And basically what it is it's the whole idea is you take the stuttering by the horns. So what I did you have to go through a couple sessions where you literally go in public. So I went to the North Park Mall, and you just talk to random people for like 2 hours straight. And he makes you like stutter, like you gotta stutter because you gotta face the fear. And if you have a stutter, it doesn't go away. So might as well just admit it and deal with it. So I've come a long way in the past 2 years, and I just recently took a new role at work where I'm exclusively client facing and educating. So that's a whole another element to just talking is not only speaking, but being able to effectively communicate. And that's kind of why I got the courage, like, I'm going to join Toastmasters and work on my ability to communicate. That's what brings me here today and why I'm standing up here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Well, you did it. First speech, always good. Now, our second speaker of this evening is going to be Jessica Guadagnino. Okay, Guadagnino. Okay. And this is your second speech, actually, and Dagan is going to be your evaluator. So, Dagan, will you tell us what Jessica's goals are?
Like I said, this is going to be her second speech since you've been here at Toastmasters. So basically, we're still getting a feel of her speaking abilities. So basically, I'm just going to see what she delivers up here and just kind of just give her overall feedback on what I see. So back to you.
Great. So, please welcome Jessica Guadagnino. To fear or not to fear, Jessica Guadagnino.
I'm going to preface this by saying I'm very underprepared because I have been traveling for work. So most likely I'm going to be reading this because I have not had time to memorize it at all. So with that being said, here's a deal. Have you ever wondered how something works? Maybe how the mechanics of a printer work, or why an animal, or maybe even sometimes a human behaves the way that they do. Yet never took it upon yourself to do the research or to simply type it into Google to find out. Well, I have, in specific to dogs, and why some of them are afraid of thunder and lightning. This is especially the case for my yellow Labrador, Baxter. As soon as he can sense rain hitting the floor outside, he becomes very cautious. You can even find him hiding dark in the closet, panting by himself, as if he had just run at the dog park for a few miles. I've always just assumed it had something to do with a possible vibration in the sound, or maybe even a certain scent that he was smelling that was unpleasant. As a dog lover and owner, it's painful to watch Baxter tremble in fear without knowing exactly how to comfort him in these situations. Aside from showing him love and coddling him, which I've actually found out in my minor investigation is very bad, because in other words, you're basically teaching them that whenever it's thunder or lightning outside, that okay, my mom's gonna come here, or dad, and coddle me and get attention. So not necessarily the best thing to do, so I found that to be a poor choice of action. I'm very glad I've had this opportunity to speak about the topic because I have found some causes and solutions for the fear. So according to a multiple of studies, there are copious amounts of reasons why some dogs are scared of thunder. So some may have phobias of loud noises, so this would also include loud noises such as fireworks. Some may have a noise anxiety. There's also certain breeds that may be impacted by this fear, such as a rough collie and Pembroke Welsh Corgi, which I have not had the time to research, but I just know that labs, or at least my lab, is more sensitive to it. One scientific study actually really shocked me, no pun intended, and that was that dogs experience a feeling of static electricity, and this static can tingle through their fur, and it even causes electric shocks from the static buildup. So this is most likely why you can find Baxter in any closet hiding in the dark, because it actually counteracts the electricity for them. They like to be grounded in these situations. And another good place for them is actually a bathtub due to the metal piping, because I guess those actually act as an electrical grounding device for them. So it grants your
All right,
dog.
guys.
Another remedy is an anti-static jacket or a thunder shirt, which gives a gentle, constant pressure to be able to relieve stress and anxiety. Humans may also equate this to a weighted blanket, which I had no idea what that was, but I was actually gifted that for Christmas one year. And it did not work for me, unfortunately. I wish I had it right now, but some people, I don't know, I guess it works for them. There are of course, anxiety medications that can be prescribed to dogs, but I would highly recommend taking a holistic approach first and try to figure out if you can naturally figure out a way to comfort them in these situations. In my personal experience, distractions for them, like playing with them, or I've actually taken Baxter outside, which, believe it or not, you would think would hurt them, but as long as he is running around or actively doing something to kind of help him distract himself, he's okay. Retreats even seem to be a winner for him. It seems to take the intensity of the anxiety down and help bring them to a state of peace. And I will continue to research the most advantageous ways to help alleviate my dog's fear of thunder, and I hope you guys have guided some insight of your own. Thank you.
He'd be gone and go, "Brrr." She was like, there it is. So I always thought that was interesting how they know. So now we've had our two speakers this evening. They both did a very good job. Thank you very much. And now I need a timer's report. Levi, did both speakers qualify on time?
No, so Tyler came in at 6 minutes flat, just came in at 4 minutes, so I'm not sure.
Okay. So we don't really need to vote. So if you would though, on our voting slips and everything, if you have some comments you'd like to make to Tyler or Jessica, then go ahead and put them on there, put them in the blue cups, and the vote counter will distribute them to the person if you have comments that you'd like to share with them, please. Okay. One last unexplained event. This one's actually been happening recently. I live in a condo and I have a roommate. And we've both heard it. And there's been several times he's noticed it. I noticed it once, and then he came back and he said, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "No." But he told me what he thought he heard, and I said, "I've heard something like that too." We'll be in the kitchen, not together. We've never been in the same room at the same time. But I was in the kitchen doing something, and all of a sudden I heard somebody say something right here next to me. And he wasn't anywhere near me, he wasn't even in the house. But it was, I can't remember what it was said, but it was just something like that, something really dim. It's happened to him too lately. It's like, so you're hearing the voices, and it's like, yeah, so you're hearing them, so I know they're not in my head. If they are, they're in both of our heads. But still don't know why that's happening. But it's not scary again, it's just, isn't that interesting? And it just recently started. I've lived there for going on 20 years, so it's not like, you know, I'm sure somebody died in that place at one point in my life. Not my life. In the 60 odd years that place has been around, so who knows? All right, so now we're going to move on to the next portion of our meeting, and that is table topics. And Mark Sims is our table topics host tonight, so come on up, Mark.
In this portion of the meeting, you get an opportunity to speak on an impromptu basis. Several of you will receive a question that maybe you're not anticipating. And again, you have an opportunity to kind of test your ability to think and talk on your feet. A couple of things to keep in mind is one is you have to speak for at least 1 minute, and then a maximum of 2 minutes and 30 seconds, including the grace period. So if you're speaking, please keep your eye on Levi. When you've hit the minimum, he'll hold up a green card. When you've hit 2 minutes, he will hold up a red card, which means you have 30 seconds to shut it down. And in order to win the competition, you need to use the word of the day. This is phenomenon. And if that's a little too bulky, we'll probably let you get away with saying the plural phenomena. But please keep those two things in mind. And while I'm up here, if the AC kicks on, I may have to start yelling in order for you to hear me. So if that happens, I'm not mad or anything. And also, we have several guests tonight, which is great. You're not required to participate in this, but once you've seen a few examples, if you do want to try your hand at it, I'm looking around for someone to call on, just wave at me and we can get you up here and give you an opportunity. If you don't want to do that, if you just want to observe how this works, that is perfectly fine also. And the questions tonight will kind of play off tonight's theme. I'm not so sure I'm grateful to John Vessels because these things make me think later on, so at night if I don't sleep easily, okay, buddy, it's your fault. But one unexplainable event, not totally, but sometimes there are just extreme coincidences that you may encounter. I can recall years ago, when I was a kid, our family took a vacation to Houston. We went up in a small elevator in the San Jacinto Monument, not room for a whole lot of people. I turned around and there was a boy that was on my Little League team back in Arlington. I mean, not supernatural, but really a coincidence. And also, John was talking about phone calls. And back in the old landline days, once in a great while, I might call someone and I wouldn't hear the phone ring on their end, but they would be there when I said hello. So it's almost as if they had called me at the same time I was calling them. So sometimes really weird coincidences happen to you. And for this first question, I would like to ask the speaker to tell me about an extreme coincidence they can think of. And for this, I will call on Lisa Mitchell.
Thank you, Table Topics Master. That's a hard question. I really can't think of any phenomenon, coincidences that come to mind off the top of my head. I will say I think it's interesting, not really coincidence, but every time I'm with my younger sister, everybody swears that we're twins. And so I find that really interesting. Like, we really can't go anywhere without people asking if we're twins. So it's become a running joke in our family that we're twins. So anytime we go anywhere, like even if I'm at work, if it's like a family thing and she's with me after work, people will be like, "I didn't know you had a twin." I'm like, "I don't." So, like I said, that's just become a running joke and a coincidence. So we have, that's just been a coincidence. So thank you.
And thank you, Lisa. That's a very good example on how the response you had, it didn't 100% fit the question, but you have that option up here. If you don't have a perfect answer, just give us the best answer that you can. Now, the second question, John made a couple of references to ghosts. Now, on the first one, when he was working in Safeway, okay, I worked in a grocery store myself, and I was trying to make a drinking motion at him, so that could have explained the first ghost, but not the second one he told us about. And I've never had any type of potential encounter with a ghost. Don't really want to, but I would like to ask Tom Turecki if he's ever had an encounter with a ghost. Tom. Let's go, let's do that.
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. I have never had an experience firsthand with the ghost, and I have to tell you point blank that I don't believe in ghosts or paranormal phenomena. However, in college, this kind of counts. In college, I actually worked for Ghostbusters. No, I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. I was a programmer. I was a computer science major. They didn't call themselves Ghostbuster, but that's what they were. They were a group in the engineering department. They were in the basement, and they got funding. They were chartered to do a for real scientific investigation into quote unquote paranormal phenomena. And so the two things that they studied and the experiments that I helped with, they were looking into whether people had telekinesis or the ability to predict the future or influence it. And so they had a wall. It was a big pachinko machine, and it dropped balls at the top, and then they would land in slots in the bottom. And so you would expect kind of a Gaussian distribution. And then they would have experiments where they would have people and they'd tell them, shift it to the left or to the right. Anyway, now I was the computer programmer who built this stuff to count those and produce the results. So that's my experience with ghosts and paranormal phenomena. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Come find me afterwards and I'll tell you about the results.
Thank you, Tom. John also made reference to ESP, extrasensory perception. And we probably all experienced something where we had some type of feeling, maybe something was wrong or something was going to happen. Maybe not frequently, but something along those lines. And I would like to ask Karen Lee if she's ever had any really significant ESP situations.
Have I ever had any significant ESP situations? No, I've never had any ESP situations. I did have an interesting, what I call an interesting dream phenomenon. I never seen a ghost either, but right after my grandmother died, I had a dream. And I dreamed in my dream that I asked her, I said, what is it like in heaven? And she said, I can't tell you what it's like in heaven because I can't exactly put it into words. She said, it's wonderful. And it was nothing to be afraid of. It was just a very good situation. So ever since I've had that dream, I've never had any fear of death, I suppose. But I've also been able to think very fondly about her and about the situation. So no, I have never had any situation where I was reading minds of any kind, but I did enjoy that dream. Back to you, Mr. Timmermans.
Thank you. It was very interesting. This next question has to do with UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And that's getting a lot of publicity nowadays. I've seen it on MSN.com several times, because it appears that our government's kind of taking a position now that where for many, many years, if someone brought up the subject, government would shut it down, say, no, there's absolutely no such thing. And now I think the attitude is, well, yeah, there's some things that we really can't explain. We don't know if it's some of the outer space, but we've seen some technologies in the air we really can't explain. So I would like to ask this next question. If you've ever had any type or thought you've seen a UFO, it would be even better if you think you've been abducted. That would be a great answer. Please tell us, but have you ever seen a UFO? Justin Faust.
This question is definitely hard to answer. Have I seen a UFO? Definitely not. Have I been abducted? Maybe, probably not. I will say this though, when I was going to the University of Houston, it was 2017, and it was during the daytime. There was a phenomenon in which the moon was partially covering the sun. It was an eclipse. And I remember going outside. This was a big deal. It was national news. The first eclipse in the US that covers most of the sun. And I was like, wow, I'm really gonna see something incredible. So I went outside, I was all excited. As a child, I was pretty into like space, like I was pretty into the solar system, planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars. So I was really excited. And I went outside and I saw only a portion of the sun covered. And I was like, this was the big deal? It was like a cloud covered part of the sun. And then 10 minutes later, it was finished. So I felt kind of robbed, kind of gypped. I was like, really? This was the big deal? Like, what a farce, right? But, John, if anyone sees a UFO in the mark, sees the UFO, please call me. I'll bring a camera, we'll record it, and we'll have a good time. Thank you.
And final question on unexplained events. And I haven't heard this in several years, but used to there would be speculation or stories about people seeing Bigfoot. Like I think in the Northwest United States, some big, huge gorilla that supposedly lived up there. Or you may have heard of the Loch Ness Monster. And some people say, yeah, there's something to it. I've seen it. Some people say, no, it's just stories that people make up. And I would like to ask Mark Schroeder what his opinions are on things such as Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster.
What are my opinions on Bigfoot? So I'm an amateur photographer, so I have a special take on this particular one. There is the standard photo or standard video that you see of Bigfoot walking through into the woods and then disappearing. And the answer is, what is that? And the answer is, that's Christy Brinkley in bad light. Because it really, from a photography standpoint, it really is true that lighting makes a huge difference in terms of what you see and what you don't see. Now, do I believe that there's a Bigfoot? Probably not. I just say that from the standpoint of if there was, I really honestly believe that we'd have found it by now. With the exception of the fact that there are a lot of things in the deep ocean that we've never gotten to. We've done a better job probably of exploring space than we have of exploring our own oceans. I don't think the phenomenon like Bigfoot or the Yeti, if you prefer to call it that, it's just hard to believe with as many people and as many cameras as there are on the planet at this point, that we don't have really good documented evidence of them. It kind of defies belief. It doesn't pass the smell test anymore. At some point back in the 50s when everybody was like, nobody goes out in those woods anymore. That's another thing, but with all the cameras, I just no longer believe that it's really very low. So I suspect that all of those are legends, and that's about it. Mark.
Thank you to all the table topics responders. Those are some very good responses because the questions made you think a little, and the responses weren't always 100% online with questions, but people had to kind of stretch, think on their feet, and they did a very, very good job. At this point, I would like to ask Levi to give us a timer's report.
Yes, everyone qualified.
Okay, excellent. Everyone qualified, and I would like to ask Kim if everyone used the word of the day.
Everyone use the word of the day.
Okay, great. So at this point, we will vote on the best table topics responder, and guests, you're able to vote also. And I will give you a quick rundown of the responses. The question about extreme coincidences was responded to by Lisa Mitchell. And Tom Turicki gave us his thoughts on Ghost. Karen Lee discussed ESP. Justin discussed UFOs. And Mark Schroeder just now discussed his thoughts on Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. So please write down your vote on one of the slips of paper. Please put it in one of the cups on the table in front of you. And now our vote counter, Lisa, will here in a minute so collect those ballots. And before we go on to the next part, Mr. Toastmaster, did you have any other comments? So please help me welcome again our Toastmaster, John Vessels.
One last story. I work in the healthcare industry, and several years ago, I used to work at direct patient care. So I'd actually take care of patients. And, okay, so anyway, I went in to check on this little old lady in the apartment this at night. I went in to check about it, and see how she was doing, getting her ready for bed and everything. And she was all sitting up there, all happy, and sitting up in bed, and it's like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, we do all this. And she goes, okay. And she said, say hi to my husband. And it's like, okay. She goes, I know you can't see him. It's okay. He's here to get me. It's like, okay. And she pointed to the chair that was in the room. It's like, okay, cool. She died that night. Back to you. Now our general evaluation portion of the meeting, Tom Turicki.
Thank you very much. So this is the portion of our meeting where we develop our skills by giving and receiving feedback. So our first evaluator, evaluating Tyler, is Lee King. Lee, are you there on the phone?
Yes. Could we have Levi come up with the card so I can see the timing? Or is he close to the camera enough to show the cards?
Working on it.
Okay.
Ready?
We're good? Okay. Yes, then Tom, I'm ready whenever you are.
Take it away.
All right. Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and especially Tyler. It's always a great opportunity to do icebreaker speeches to evaluate the icebreaker speech, and yours is none other but a pleasure. I will give you a few points that I thought you did well and a few suggestions to consider in the future. First, you came up on stage, you made it on stage the whole time, you didn't die, you didn't collapse, so congratulations. You met your very first objective. You actually lived on stage. Also, you made some good uses of posture, and I'll talk about that later. Also, your pitch rate and volume was very effective. I could hear it, which meant that if I could hear it virtually, then probably everybody in the room could hear your speech, which is very good for an icebreaker speech. Another really positive thing is I really didn't hear any stuttering, and I look for that just mainly because you had mentioned that you have an articulation disorder in which you stutter. So I know that you would be interested in that feedback, and I just want to let you know that you did very well. I would not have known that you had a stuttering disorder had you not shared that with us. A couple of things that you might want to consider in the future is to work on the filler words. Your main filler word is the word You had several of those throughout the speech, which I know, again, with you having a stuttering disorder, you probably rely on those crutch words to help get you through, which is still less distracting, but just something to consider working on. Another thing to consider would be your posture throughout the speech. There was several times when there were some meaningless postures. However, you did also make good use of posture in that you used your hands effectively when talking about the guitar and your experience in the band. So I believe that you effectively used posture, but then that's also an area for you to grow as well. Finally, I really thought that you did a great job of giving us a very good chronological order of your speech, of your life, and what you hope to get out of Toastmasters. And I really think that that is one of the main focal points of an icebreaker speech. We always want to know what brought someone to Toastmasters? What do they hope to get out of Toastmasters? And you also shared future goals for your life as well. Very well done. Definitely look forward to hearing more speeches from you. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lee. Next up, our second evaluation is Dagan Newland, who's going to be giving us an evaluation of Jessica's speech. Thank you, Dagan.
All right, yes, I'm going to evaluate just a speech tonight, and I'm going to do the 3, 2, 1 method. 3 things I enjoyed about the speech, a couple things to improve on, and 1 thing I really enjoyed. So the first thing I was going to mention that when you start off your speech, you kind of start with like a question, talk about have you ever Googled something. So that kind of gets the audience thinking, gets them engaged. So that's always a good start when you start your speech. The second thing is really overall just a great format that you had up here. You had a good opening, like I mentioned a while ago. You told us why you're looking it up, the information up, and told us why dogs are afraid and what to do, and had a really nice conclusion. So overall, just a really great format. And the third thing that I liked about your speech was really just a lot of great information in a short amount of time. So just really a lot of good information about the thundering and the electricity and all that kind of stuff. So that was really great. Now a couple of things to improve on. Now we talk about the no pun intended. It says shocked me, and then you went to the electricity type thing. We talked about that first, then did your pun. Actually, I in my opinion, to get a little more effect to it. So, and the second thing would be, when you first got here, when you got behind the lectern, and I know you just say you weren't as prepared as you want to, so most likely why you're behind the lectern the whole time. But at the very beginning, you're kind of more leaning up here. So it's kind of just, you don't want to do that. You want to kind of stand up straight, but don't want to lean out too much. But that's toward the beginning. But toward the end, you were kind of more relaxed. So overall, did a good job on that towards the later of the speech. And the last thing that I really liked about it was, like you said, you weren't as prepared that when you came up here, but you gave your speech anyway. So that was a really good thing. You didn't cancel your speech. You wouldn't have came up here and did it, got that experience up here. So and you did it really confidently too. So overall, great format. The way you started your speech was really good. A lot of good information. just kind of switch that pun around. Talk about what you want to talk about first, then do everybody have to get more effect, and don't lean on lectern. And overall, you got to do your speech. So, really great job, Jessica. Back to you.
Thank you, Dagan. All right, at this time, can I get a timer's report on our evaluators, Levi?
Yes, we went for 3 minutes and 5 seconds, Dagan 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
So they both qualified?
Both qualified.
Outstanding. Okay, so at this time, I'll give you a moment. You can vote on evaluators, on the best of the evaluators. So I'm going to take a moment, uncomfortable silence here. I'll be quiet to give you a moment to vote. All right, so it looks like the votes are in. Next up, let's get duty holders reports. First, I'd like to go to the phone. Rob Giles, our counter. Can you give us a report?
Mr. General Evaluator, thank you so much. A crutch word that we all used throughout the meeting was so. And we used it sometimes correctly at the beginning of a sentence. Instead of saying therefore, you might say so, and then you give your sentence or your statement. However, some of us who did use it correctly did it repeatedly, as in 2 or 3 sentences in a row. And I think if we can kind of eliminate some of that, it might eliminate some of the other uses of the word so, which I will get into a little bit more specifically as to who used those types of errant so's. Going through the meeting, John, you had a couple of those so's where you were using them as transition. Tyler, during your prepared speech, as your evaluator mentioned, you had a couple of crutch words. One of them was and one of them was And if you look back at the recording, listen back to the recording, you'll see some of those things. You did also have some filler words with so's, you knows, ands for transitional points. And I think Lee actually brought that up as well. So a few things for you to think about. Jessica, unfortunately, I cut out and didn't hear most of your speech. What I did hear, I didn't hear any crutch words. So there you go. You were clean for what I heard. Mark Sims, during table topics, I didn't hear any crutch words. Lisa, during your table topics speech, you had a few things that you might want to work on. One of them is You also use so as a transitional phrase or word that wasn't really needed or appropriate. You also threw in a like, a you know, and a couple of us. Tom, during your topic speech, you repeated they a couple of times. You had one and beyond that, I didn't hear anything. Karen, you had a repeated it's. You said it's when you started a sentence, but nothing else besides that. Justin, during your table topic speech, you had a couple of ums, an and you had a few likes. You threw in like, even though it wasn't really appropriate. It's just an extra word, a filler word. Mark Schroeder, you were clean during table topics. During the evaluations, Lee, you were clean. Not surprising, you're clean pretty much every week. Dagan, during your table topics, your most used crutch word in the past has been you know, or a phrase you know. However, tonight, only a couple of those that I heard. You replaced those with so. And most of those so's were not at the beginning of a sentence, they were at the end. So you would give a statement, then you would say so, as if we were waiting to hear, so what? And you left out whatever phrase would come after that. So therefore I categorize that as a crutch. You had a few us as well, and one repeat I that I heard. Tom, as the general evaluator, I have not heard yet any crutch words being used, but I will keep tabs on those and let you know later, perhaps, if you use them. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, I think. Okay, next up, could we get a report from Kim, our phenomenal grammarian this evening?
Everybody did a great job using the word of the day during table topics. The idea is to learn or remember a word and encourage to use it during the week whenever it's appropriate. I did not hear any glaring errors. Great job, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Kim. Next up, posture monitor, Mark Schroeder.
I'm going to start down here just to keep me closer to the mic, but I'm not going to be able to stay down here to do all of them because I will need to be up there to show something. Let me start with Tyler. One of the things that I really liked was the bass with the bow. That was very, very good. That was excellent. I did notice one thing that is a little interesting, and it shows up more in person than it does on the video, which is interesting, which is you tend to talk with your head slightly cocked to the right most of the time. So just watch that. It's one of those things that if it's 100% of your speech, it becomes kind of noticeable. Jessica, this is where I have to go up onto the stage. Because I can do it down there, but you'd never notice it. When you're up here and you're doing this little wiggle with the foot, it becomes noticeable. So don't do that. You also would definitely benefit from a shorter lectern because you had some really good hand motions, but the hand motions were down here where we couldn't see them. And I wish we had the ability to have a shorter lectern with regard to that. And there's one thing which I normally would not comment on because it's grammarian's duty, but I happen to notice it. The way that you use the no pun intended, typically the way I would think of using that, it's more effective if you do the pun and then say no pun intended. As you said no pun intended and then did the pun. So I do just flip the order. Other than that, you didn't hear a whole lot of this tonight. There was one other one that I didn't ding because you would never have understood what I was dinging him for, and that's the sunglasses on the top of the head. It is really not that dark in here, and you certainly don't need them there. Set them on the table. Put them on even. It's better putting them on, at least then you look cool. So that was, of course, Justin that did that. But the fact that I did not do this, for what it's worth, that means that Revolver, Blood, and Honey ×2 makes you less annoying. Anybody that is currently still in the dating pool, remember that.
Thank you, Mark. I always learn so much from your commentary, even about blood and honey. All right, is that all? I think at this time then, let's see, it's time for the general evaluators report. So to kick the meeting off, John, I thought you started it off on a great tone. You're not a high energy speaker the way I am, but the topic you selected and your delivery of it, unexplained events, really set the meeting off on a good tone. It is such a fun topic, and it's also really attention getting. Even though I think paranormal stuff is a bunch of horsebucky, I still love hearing about it. I'm still gonna lean in and listen to the stories. I love even telling the stories of stuff. So great topic. Let's see. The next one I jotted down. The AC, Mark, you mentioned this. You have noticed this. The AC is really noisy. It's not going now, so I probably don't have to project as much. And thank you for pointing it out. But wow, when the AC gets going, it is really hard to hear back in the back. In fact, I think in your last comments, John, the AC kicked on and you projected a little bit more, but I still, back in the back of the room, I could still barely hear you. I think I missed out on the majority of your comments. So, reminder, when it kicks on, you really have to go over the top and project. Tyler, I thought your topic was phenomenal. One of the things I really like about the icebreaker speeches is it gives us a chance to get to know you more. And I share Lee's observation that had you not mentioned it, I would have never known that you had stuttered in the past. I would never have picked it up. So you've obviously come a long way in your journey. And also, I really enjoyed hearing the story about going to the mall and working through it. I also, and then Jessica, your talk on dogs. I'm a huge dog lover, and I have an 80-pound lab with thunderstorm anxiety. So yours really resonated with me, and I really enjoyed the topic. And also, I learned something new. I always enjoy it when I come to these meetings and learn something new. I had never heard the part about static electricity and that they can sometimes pick that up in their hair or even get it. Let's see, the last comment, the last observation that I had on this evening was during Jessica's talk, there was someone who was remote who was unmuted. I'm not sure who it was, but somehow we got interrupted 3 or 4 times, and that was really distracting. So this is primarily a comment to those on the phone. Be sure you're on mute if you're not speaking. That's all that I had. The last topic for this evening, I believe, the last agenda item is, oh wait, no, before we go to that, we do a vote for the big 3. So Toastmaster, John Vessels, Topics Master, Mark Sims, and the General Evaluator, myself. So I'll give you a moment to put your votes in on those. And while you do, next up is, I believe, Lee for our business portion of the meeting. Lee, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
All right. Thank you, Lee.
Lee, just before you stop, since I can't get to any devices, guests tonight that we have Steve, we have Ryan, we have Dixie, and I believe we have Angelica.
Is Angelica supposed to be online? I don't see her on.
No, she's not online, she's here in the room.
Oh, she's, okay, you were looking at the TV as if maybe she was.
No, I was looking, she's on that side of the room. But she's on,
okay. All right.
If we have any guests online, I'm not aware of it. We have.
No, I was gonna say, I don't think we have any. Let's do this. If we could just have the guests go ahead and just stand up and just form a line, and then just briefly share with us how you found us and what you thought about the meeting. So, Mark, maybe you could kind of help line them up just so they can kind of get in front of the camera and.
That's good.
There we go. That works.
Will, once you start talking. Yeah. We don't see you in here, so we don't switch to the camera until there's voice.
Sure. Steve Hutto, interested in Toastmasters, actually for a while now. It's been, and I just never got around to doing it. I have a speech coming up for my adjunct class at Harvard. And so I thought, well, maybe this is a good time to, it's also 7 minutes. So I thought maybe this is a good time to work out the kinks, and I guess I just did an so and did it again. So I'm gonna try to learn from you folks. So.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Ryan. I actually found out about Toastmasters a long time ago from somebody I used to work with, and have always wanted to come and just never made the time. My wife and I, Cece, have been talking about it, and we just decided today to come and see what it's all about. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Dixie. You probably can tell that from my accent, the English is not my native language. And then I came here to the United States for college. That's where I met my husband Ryan. And then later I got a job, and then as an analyst, and I feel like I have to do a PowerPoint, and I need to do presentation, and I feel like that's the soft skill that I can develop, and then so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Okay.
One more, Angelica. While we're at it, Angelica has submitted her application, and we just have to take care of the rest of the formalities.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes, so I'm Angelica. I think this is my 3rd meeting, and I just submitted my application
probably less than an hour ago. But this was a really exciting meeting, and I'm really excited to go through the program and work on my speaking skills. And I'm in a client-facing role at work, so I think it will really help me. So I'm really excited about it.
All right, I believe we've made it through all of the guests. We will, I'll give a couple of announcements, and then finally we will elect in our new member. Couple of announcements. First and foremost, I do want to remind everybody that our hybrid meetings will be coming to an end at the end of the Toastmaster year, which will be the last meeting in June, will be the last hybrid meeting. At that point, we will be face-to-face only until if or when the threat level in the county were to go to orange. We may, at that point, consider reinstituting hybrid meetings. Or of course, if it went to red, we might consider going totally virtual. Once again, hopefully we don't come to that, but at least the plan for now is to go back to the quote unquote normal, which is in person only, starting on the first week in July. The second announcement is that we've got officer elections coming up. It has not been brought to my knowledge that we have anybody that's really expressed interest in being an officer that's not already an officer. If you are interested in being an officer, please email myself or any of the other officers and let us know. I would say no later than Saturday night. I would like to have an officers meeting Sunday evening around 7:30 if that's possible. If not, we can do it on Monday night at 7:30, just to kind of decide how we want to proceed. We will have officers. Regardless, it sounds to me like unless we have a lot coming up at the very last minute, then we will probably just have a single vote at the end of the next meeting with everybody approving the slate of officers. We would not have to do any type of campaign speech or anything like that. So I will be communicating with the officers. We will get back with you. But again, if you're interested in running for an office and you have not already indicated, please let us know by Saturday. And I'm sorry. Okay. And now we will go ahead and vote in our new member. This is just a procedural thing so that should there be problems, we could vote the member out. So if I could please have the Sergeant at Arms or someone go with Angelica and let me know when she has left the room so we can proceed with that.
Working on that now. One moment.
Awesome.
Elvis has left the building.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept Angelica into Dallas Social Toastmasters?
I move we accept Angelica as a member of Dallas Social Toastmasters.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Do we have any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, please let Angelica in.
In process.
Congratulations, Angelica. Welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. All right, at this point, let's go ahead and get a vote counts report, please.
Just one other quick thing, because I know after you do that, you're going to close the meeting.
Yes.
As the Zoom coordinator, my apologies to Jessica for the interruption during the meeting. We just flat don't have enough equipment to make sure everybody stays muted. And the way things are, if I start trying to mute people, I think I actually screw up the camera for a little bit. So I tried to do as little as I could to mess up with things, but I apologize. We normally would have at least one other person monitoring who could have muted people. Couldn't do that tonight.
Okay, so for the votes tonight, for best table topics, it goes to Justin, but we're out of ribbons apparently. So for evaluator, that goes to Lee online. Best speaker goes to Tyler. And best of the big three goes to John.
All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Give me one quick second to stop the recording, everyone.